There are moments from childhood that never quite leave you. They sit somewhere in the back of your mind, quiet and still, until something unexpected drags them back to the surface. This is one of those memories, and the longer I sit with it, the more unsettled I genuinely feel. Because what I believed had happened and what actually happened are two very, very different things, and it took me years, and one very quiet conversation with my mom, to finally understand the difference. I was young, maybe 7 or 8 years old, when my mom and my grandparents decided to take me on a day out. It was not a trip to a theme park, a cinema, or anywhere a child would normally feel excited about. They were taking me to visit an old jail, a real one, a facility that had been shut down many years before and converted into a historic tourist attraction open to the public. I remember the drive there clearly, the way the landscape seemed to grow quieter the further we traveled, the trees thickening on either side of the road, the light getting flatter and grayer. By the time we arrived and I looked up at those enormous stone walls, cold and stained and impossibly tall, something inside me already felt instinctively, wordlessly wrong. The entrance was heavy and dark, and the air inside hit me the moment we stepped through. It was colder than outside, noticeably and immediately so, a damp and pressing kind of cold that seemed to rise from the floor itself and settle against your skin and clothes. It was not the cold of weather or open windows. It was something older, something that had soaked into the stone and the iron and the timber over decades of confinement and silence. I stayed close to my mum as we moved through the first long corridor, my footsteps too loud, my eyes adjusting slowly to the thin pale light coming through barred windows set high up in the walls. That was when I first saw them. There were figures moving slowly between the cells, dressed in worn, muted clothing, their heads lowered and their shoulders drawn in close. They moved with a kind of heaviness I could feel even at a distance. One of them stopped near a rusted cell door, pressed a hand flat against the bars, and stared at the ground without expression. I reached up, took my mum's hand, and whispered to her that the actors were incredibly realistic. She looked down at me briefly, gave a small nod, and kept walking calmly. I assumed she simply had not heard me clearly over the steady echo of the corridor around us. The deeper we walked into that building, the more figures I began to notice. They were scattered across the entire wing, barely acknowledging the visitors moving around them. Some sat on the edges of narrow cots inside open cells, staring at their hands or at the floor. Others stood at the barred windows, their backs to the room, facing nothing. None of them spoke, not one of them made eye contact, and not one of them appeared to break character even for a single moment. I had never seen anything like it in my life. As a child I was completely convinced, and that conviction was beginning to shift into something that felt less like admiration and a great deal more like genuine, creeping fear. I remember one figure in particular. He was standing near a low wooden table at the far end of the corridor, and he was not moving at all. His head was slightly bowed, both hands resting flat on the surface in front of him, and there was something about his stillness that felt different from all the others. It was not the stillness of a person standing quietly. It was the stillness of something frozen, something holding its breath, something waiting for a reason only it understood. I told myself he was simply the most committed of all the performers. I told myself that more than once, as I kept walking and kept my grip tight on my mum's hand. Then something shifted. One of the figures, a man positioned near the middle of the hall, slowly raised his head and looked directly at me. Not toward the group, not across the general space of the room, but directly and unmistakably at me. His face was pale and completely without expression, and he held my gaze for what felt like an uncomfortably long time. I stopped walking. My heart was loud in my chest and louder in my throat. I told my mum, quietly and with urgency, that I wanted to leave. She told me we had only just arrived, that there was plenty more to see, and that I should keep close and keep moving. I could not explain to her, in the way that children often cannot explain things, exactly what was frightening me. I only knew, clearly and completely, that I was frightened, the man was still watching me when I glanced back over my shoulder. He had not moved. And in that moment something in my chest simply broke open, and I started to cry, loud and uncontrollable and entirely beyond stopping. My mum turned at once, my grandparents exchanged a look, and within a few quiet, apologetic minutes we were back outside in the gray afternoon air, and I could finally, shakily breathe again. I carried that memory with me for a very long time. Not as something I thought about every day, but as one of those stored impressions that resurfaces occasionally, usually late at night or in the middle of some entirely unrelated thought. I remembered the cold, the silence, the figures in their gray clothing, the man who had watched me from across that corridor. I remembered it as one of the most immersive and genuinely disturbing pieces of live theater I had ever witnessed. I even described it to people on a few occasions over the years, telling them about this extraordinary performance I had seen as a small child, how convincing and committed the actors had been, how it had frightened me so completely that my family had to leave before the tour was finished. My mum and I were talking a few years ago, the way you do when you are older and the past feels like something you can revisit with more ease and openness. The conversation drifted, as it often does, toward old memories, places we had been, things we had done together when I was young. I brought it up, the jail, the tour, the unsettling performance that had reduced me to tears. I told her I still thought about it occasionally. There was a brief pause before she responded, a small quiet moment that I did not think anything of at first. Then she said, gently and quite carefully, that she was not sure what I meant by a performance. I repeated myself, described the figures in the cells, the gray clothing, the man who had stared at me. Another pause. She told me, as calmly as she could, that there had been no actors. There had been no theater company, no guided reenactment, no immersive experience organized for visitors. We had simply gone to walk through an old, empty building that had once been a working prison. She remembered the trip well. She remembered me becoming very upset and them having to take me outside. She did not remember any performance, because there had been nothing to remember. I did not know what to say. I still do not, entirely. I have spent a great deal of time turning it over, searching for the rational answer, the trick of light in a dim corridor, the overactive imagination of a small and frightened child. Perhaps that is all it was. Perhaps I saw other visitors, or staff members, or nothing at all, and my mind quietly filled the emptiness with shapes and stillness and staring faces. I hope that is what happened. I genuinely, sincerely hope so. Because the alternative, the idea that whatever I saw moving between those cells was not part of any tour and was not there for anyone else, is not something I am quite ready to sit with.